Joining me now is Stephen Burega, El Presidente.
Good to see you.
Absolutely. And one of your companies is called Appia.
Yes.
And we're going to discuss that. We haven't talked to you about this company before, so we're going to kind of get an overview.
Perfect.
And kind of a funny note, I'm actually, I'm from this area that we're driving right now.
Oh, you're kidding?
Yeah, man. I was born...
You grew up here?
Well, I wouldn't say that, but I was born down here and spent the first 5 years of my life.
All right.
I used to hit some baseballs there at a Greenwood Park.
That's amazing.
Also, when I picked you up, I turned around and was parked the wrong way and in one way in my old neighborhood. It's kind of silly. All right, so how did you get involved with Appia?
So Appia is one of two companies that was founded by a gentleman named Tom Dreyfus. He founded Appia about 18 years ago now, and it's a CSE listed company. And Tom asked that I come on board as he needed some bench strength. He needed someone who can come in and, operationally speaking, come in to help out. Appia is very active. It's had some exceptional work programs over the past few years. Assets both in rare earths and in uranium.
Yep.
Canadian focused. Primary assets based in northern Saskatchewan. And we also have a uranium and rare earths asset in Elliot Lake, Ontario. Okay. So I came on board about 2 months ago. This is new to me.
Okay.
Coming on to 2.5 months.
So let's talk about the share structure a little bit. How many shares are out on this thing?
About 130 million shares.
Okay.
And
so your market cap's around 35 million?
Yeah, depending on the day, that's right, give or take.
What's the flagship project right now for Appia?
So Appia's primary focus has been Ulysses Lake. So Ulysses Lake is found in the basin, Athabasca Basin.
Okay.
It's in around U City and Fond du Lac. For those who understand the northern geography of the basin, and it's a big monazite play. So monazite hosted rare earths is specifically what we're after. And a few years ago, we had a very significant finding of very high-grade monazite with high-grade rare earths, and these are light rare earths that we're talking about. And what we've been doing over the past few years is follow-up work programs to see if we can extend that high grade. But also, what we've now identified is that there's quite a significant low to medium grade component to this story. Just a few weeks ago, we released the first of a series of results on the Wilson zone and AMP zone. So Wilson was this first big target that we had identified. Mm-hmm. And below it, we've found what's called the AMP zone. And the AMP zone is some really good widths. And the numbers, the values are sort of low to medium grade, still very much exciting and potentially mineable. And what really is a big focus for us is the fact that this AMP zone appears to be part of a structural corridor. So what that basically means for your audience is there is a significant length. In fact, it might run as far as 25 kilometers.
Okay.
And we are going to be working at trying to connect some of these main targets. One's called WRCB, which is the northern target, to Magnet Ridge, which is about 1.5 kilometers southeast. And if we can show that the AMP zone is connected through that section, mm-hmm. and we use radiometrics, so we actually track thorium at surface. Because that monazite is our monazite specifically is high in thorium. So that's a radioactive element. We can track that at surface. And once we find high levels of thorium, then we have a strong indication that there's potential for this monazite. And if we can then show that the structural corridor runs from WRCB down to Magnet Ridge and then beyond for another 25 kilometers, we're on to something really exciting.
Wasn't there some news coming out recently, like some geopolitical things about rare earths?
There's a lot of talk about rare earths right now rare earths, heavy rare earths and light rare earths. Main use for this, and it's in wind turbines, permanent magnets for electrification of vehicles and the world. Rare earths play a major part in making magnets that can withstand high heat, essentially. So there's a big push. Now rare earths happen and can be found pretty much anywhere. It's whether or not you can find rare earths in big quantity.
Right,
That's
scaling.
That's what matters. So there's all sorts of talk, primarily because in the case of heavy rare earths and light rare earths, China has been the primary producer and controller of the significant assets from around the world. So there's a lot of talk about critical minerals in Canada and the States and around the world. Everybody's list of what makes the critical mineral list changes depending on the country. But of course, the federal government in Canada, everyone will have heard, is putting a lot of dollars and cents towards funding, identification, and funding of potential production in Canada. And we want to be part of that conversation, of course. We want to be a big part of that conversation.
Anything else on the Athabasca Basin?
Yeah, well, I think there's, one thing for sure is that we're finalizing compilation of additional data, so there should be more news coming out in very short order. And then also, I think it's important, we have been working very closely with the Saskatchewan Research Council, SRC, and they're actually building a monazite processing facility. They have IP, brand new model of how to process monazite. So, they're keen to find monazite in their backyard right now. They're bringing oxide in from Brazil. And I'm quite certain that they would like to see sort of a homegrown option for monazite and rare earths in their backyard in Saskatchewan. So I think ourselves and some of the other players who are looking at these types of assets are very much looking forward to partnering potentially with the SRC. We also just, I'd quickly touch on, we do have uranium assets up in that area as well.
Yeah, which is kind of what it's known for.
That's right.
Yeah.
I think the reality, though, is that this work program, specifically this summer, we have a significant program planning starting sometime around June. It's going to be primarily focused on the Elsie's Lake project.
Okay. Now, and how much capital are you going to allocate towards those projects?
Well, right now we're sitting on around $7 million in the bank. I think initially we'll probably a drill program of somewhere in the region of 5,000 meters, and there's a lot of groundwork to do. We're already targeted. We're ready to get the drills turning, but there's a lot more work to be done at surface as well. So we have crews that will be going in with scintillometers and XRF spectrometers to identify potential additional targets
on the ground. Yeah.
On the ground.
Without having to ask these
and we also have some aerogeophysics to complete this summer as well. So we've got some big programs planned.
Yeah, that's great. Do you want to highlight sort of the technical team that'll be heading that off?
Yeah, sure. Dr. Irvine Ainsley is our VP of X. Irv has 40 plus years of experience. He's worked in the private sector, public sector, and is also an academic. And his primary focus has always been in the Athabasca Basin. So he brings an exceptional wealth of knowledge. And we have a returning team of great young geologists and support. So our team is ready to go and hit the ground. We've got a permanent camp up at Elsie's Lake. So once the weather turns and the snow dissipates, we'll be back up there.
You mentioned Brazil about 3-4 minutes ago, and I think that's going to segue us into another project that you have a 70% interest in.
So we have the right to acquire 70%. Essentially what it is, it's called an Ionic absorption clay project. And what we've been negotiating this for some time now, and we just announced it this week. It's a Brazilian asset. It's in the same state, the state of Goiás, where there's a near-term production, Ionic clay production model coming online called Serra Verde, which is a U.S.-held asset. But basically, Ionic clays are very few and far between around the world. Again, China controls, if not all, the majority of them. And there's been a real effort made in the world right now to try and find additional Ionic clay stores. They're typically big, and they're relatively inexpensive and easy to process, relatively speaking, to big crushing facilities and flotation systems and all of these types of things. Ionic clays typically host heavy rare earths. In our particular case, it's hosting both heavy and light rare earths. Mm-hmm. And the automotive industry and the defense industry, just to name a few, are extremely keen to find these types of resources, because at the end of the day they are so few and far between, and there are very few that aren't controlled by Chinese interests. So we have a 90-day window to complete our due diligence, and then the general terms are it's about a $10 million commitment. There is that money's going into the ground. There's shares owed to our partner, and I'm really excited to get moving on it. We're going to be developing a specific team with Ionic clay experience. Mm-hmm. This won't be led by the current team of Dr. Irvine Ainsley. His focus is Saskatchewan. Yeah. We'll be bringing someone online who has that type of expertise to lead the process down in Brazil. But Awesome. It's really exciting for us.
That's great. Shareholder base. If I was looking at a pie chart,
yes.
Any institutional support? Any strategic people in there?
It's to be honest, perfectly honest, it's something that I have to still look into.
Yeah, you're obviously new to the El Presidente.
Still new to the role.
Yeah.
We have been very fortunate and successful in raising capital over the past few years. There's a lot of interest in rare earths and uranium, and we certainly have had some big players come to the table. We had a bought deal by Red Cloud a year and a half ago for a very significant chunk. This last round was fully subscribed, so we have a good shareholder base, a good solid shareholder base who continues to be supportive of the company.
And we'll get updated on that as you learn more about the company.
Absolutely, we will.
But you're kind of coming on to help with the operations side of things.
I am, and to help Tom out, who is still the CEO of the company and remains as such, and he's excellent at the job. PDAC was a very, very telling experience for me. Mm-hmm. We had a lineup at times of folks who were coming by.
That's great.
And there's strategic conversations happening. There's retail conversations happening. It's really interesting to see how this market has improved. The majors are eager to get involved, and those with real assets, those with exciting assets, are being paid attention to. It's nice to see.
What would you say new potential shareholders, when they come by the booth or you get calls or emails, what are they most interested in? Is it the rare earths? Is it uranium?
Yeah, I definitely think the rare earths is the piece that's topping most lists. I think that the fact that there's now this multi-asset component to what we have, now that we have Canadian light rare earths found in monazite, as well as the potential for this ionic clay story in Brazil, that was very intriguing to many. So I think that helped that would have topped the list of most of the folks that came by at post announcement.
Yeah.
There was definitely a surge of interest at PDAC once we put that news out.
Well, that's what you're looking for, right?
That's it.
So you're cashed up. You've got a game plan. You're going to get some more data on a project. There's going to be some drills in action. You're in the due diligence phase of the Brazilian thing. So you've got no shortage of work, my friend.
No, it's going to be an extraordinary 2023. Absolutely.
Last word for the current shareholders or potential shareholders. Anything we didn't cover?
No, I think it's as I mentioned, it's going to be, as you mentioned. I'm sorry, it's going to be a very busy year. Keeping an eye on what comes out of our due diligence process will be very telling as far as the Brazilian asset. I'm quite confident and that we'll be moving forward, but we got to get boots on the ground and look at core and look at the results of the existing data. And then, of course, it's going to be an exceptional year as far as our work in Saskatchewan is concerned. and we'll continue to monitor our plans for Elliot Lake in Ontario as well. So the company is poised with great assets. We've got money in the bank, and we've got a market that's really paying attention to this type of asset base. So it's exciting times.
Okay, and are you going to be promoting or marketing this story in anywhere else in Europe? What do you got going on for that?
Planning phase right now. Definitely, we did some work in Europe near the end of last year. We'll be hitting some conferences in the States. I think a big push will be in the States, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think that the U.S. market has a lot of interest, of course, in the rare earth side of things. A tremendous amount of interest, actually.
Do you have an OTC listing?
We do. Okay. So we have Germany listing, we have OTC listing, and we have our Canadian listing. So.
I do have a question back to, I was just thinking about the XRF gun.
Yep.
And I'm not familiar with how accurate it is with rare earths. Is it compliant? Like if you were to use an XRF gun on site and you had some massive grade, can that be news released, or do you have to then take it to?
No, it's an internal system.
Just something to give you guys guidance.
That's right. That's right. The scintillometers and the XRF systems are going to be there to vector in, to really close in on where we want to put the drill, but at the end of the day, all of our results always are lab-based.
Stephen Burega, El Presidente, new president of Appia Rare Earths and Uranium Corp.
Correct.
Thanks for joining me today.
Thanks very much. I really appreciate it.